Thank you so much for joining Rod and I on our adventures. This series will feature our incredible time in Angola and have as much information as we are able to impart based on our experiences there. Frankly, I wasn't sure about Angola. There is very little recent information about overland travel into Angola and lots of scary stuff about how expensive it is, other than the fuel. But Rod was dead keen, so I set my fears aside and off we went. We entered via the Ruacana border with a minimum of fuss. We were heading for the Iona National Park. So here's the thing. We couldn't find a map of Angola. According to Elise, the best place to get them is in Swakopmund, hundreds of miles to the south. Rod had spent a lot of time building a route using Basecamp and Tracks for Africa, which has not let us down in 3 years of serious overland travel. Our first stop was at the Ruacana Dam Viewpoint, after which we plodded along a weather-beaten trail which Tracks for Africa was convinced was a road. We had studied Elise's map of Angola during our time in the Kokomapani campsite in Apua, and that gelled with the route Rod had mapped out on Tracks for Africa, so off we went. After the little town of Hungubwe, the road became a goat track, but we could see other four-wheel drive tracks, which was very comforting. The Iona National Park is the northern extent of the Namib Desert. It stretches all the way to the Kaneni River in the south, the Kuroka River in the north, the Atlantic to the west, and the Great Escarpment to the east. Right now, African parks are taking care of the park. They are busy restocking the park, educating the locals, and vaccinating the local livestock to protect the wild animals that are being introduced. I cannot begin to imagine how hard this must be, but it seems like there's a lot of determination and political will to bring the park back to its former glory. The roads have been maintained to a certain extent, and in places there were piles of rock which had clearly been moved to make the road easier to navigate. There were endless river crossings and countless washouts, but we were not in a rush and trundled along at about 20 to 25 kilometers an hour. The bush was fairly thick, and we passed the odd herdsman with goats or cows, and we were passed by a couple of people on motorbikes. We got lots of bomb deer and lots of waving. I have left most of the footage at the original speed to give a true reflection of the road conditions. Rod has the GPX files he used to create the route and is happy to share. Just drop us a comment below. There are timestamps if you wish to skip ahead to the stunning Welwitschia fields or the extraordinary campsite next to Esphinera. I wasn't thrilled about wild camping in Angola, mainly due to the fact that there was so little information to be had, and as such I was really glad when we encountered Anne Andre Elise Eckhard. We had a lovely evening with them, and I swapped Elise some ice for some fresh asparagus from an asparagus farm somewhere in Ruacana, which was so delicious. They were all on South African time, so they got going in the morning before us, but we soon caught up with them. They had planned to spend the night at the Iona National Park gate, which was marked on Tracks for Africa. Elise and Eckhard were in an Africab vehicle, as the company, Africab, is owned by their daughter. As we drove deeper into the park, the scenery became more captivating. We drove through some rocky outcrops and had some stunning views of the mountains to the north. Fast forward 20 years and add some animals, and Iona will be breathtaking. The scenery in Iona is unique. I cannot compare the bush or the geography to any of the parks we have visited in southern or eastern Africa. Hopefully the beauty you are seeing will inspire you to visit the Iona National Park. Rod and I passed the gate marked as the Iona Gate on Tracks for Africa and decided it was too early in our day to stop, so we pressed on and found a lovely spot next to a dry riverbed, which would be our home for the night. Try again. Good morning. It's the 4th of May. It's actually Rod and I's anniversary, our 12th anniversary, so happy anniversary to us. There is a saying that goes, Africa is not for sissies. Rod and I entered Angola 2 days ago via Ruacana. There was one little man at the border post. He filled in all the forms, hopefully. He didn't ask for my yellow fever vaccine, which I rushed out and got. And it was a lot less painful than we thought it could have been. But there you go. We traveled along, I think it's the EN 100. The first little town we hit was Shifado, that I've seen on most of the maps. And then we hit a little town called Hangumbwe. And we have been traveling at about 20 kilometers an hour all day yesterday and all day the previous day. We still got many kilometers to go. We're in the Iona National Park. In Upua, we met two couples, Andre and Anne Elise Eckhard, who were also traveling to Angola. Somewhere along the line yesterday, we bumped into them under a couple of trees, and we spent the night wild camping with them. What a really nice bunch of people. And I was quite nervous. Wild camping is wild camping. But it was fun. We haven't had any aggro from anyone. We've seen many people on motorbikes. And this morning we saw a Toyota Troopy, I think, with lots of people in it. And we got a cheery wave and a good morning. Not even bom dia, good morning. And this is our campsite. We are on the banks of a river. There's people around everywhere. When I say people, there's a person here and a person there. Yesterday afternoon we were visited by a herd of goats and then a herd of cows. So while camping in the Iona National Park isn't as scary as it is. The background noise is a rodification. We have a pump that takes the diesel out of the jerry cans, so we don't have to manhandle them out and try and do it manually. My husband is very clever. Beautiful trees. Other than the ubiquitous mapani, there are some beautiful trees, including bush willows, leadwoods, terminalia, makalani palms, and many, many more that I don't have a clue about. After the little town of Iona, as we were approaching Esphinera, we started seeing literally fields of Welwitschia, hundreds and hundreds of them. We couldn't believe our eyes. These plants are endemic to the Namib Desert and are ancient. Proto-Welwitschia was around when the dinosaurs were taken out. Each plant has just 2 leaves, and there are both male and female plants. Science is still discovering exactly how these plants gain moisture and how they are pollinated. Hells, bells and buckets of blood. Rod and I are near the ghost town as it's on the map, which is actually a check-in gate for African parks. We met the wonderful lady vet who gave us all sorts of information about what it is that they're actually doing here. I think I've said before, I really admire African parks as an organization. I think they honestly trying to put back wherever they can and make a difference. Although we are wild camping as such, there is a long drop facility and also a shower, a cold water shower. It's all tucked away in this marvelous outcrop of rock, and somebody very clever has paved the floor of this cabin and built an area for the fire. Rod's having a hot shower. He's had a hard day. We have lost our friends Anne Andre Eckhard and Elise, so Rod went looking for them. That's a skull of a springbok. So African parks are restocking this park. The actual restocking or relocation of animals started last year. The lady vet we spoke to says they've got many plans of bringing in more animals, and they've got very diverse ecosystems. I waited till late afternoon to come up here because it's so hot. But I think that's somewhat of a fabulous view. We had a magical evening at our campsite in the caves, and supper was ostrich steak with lots of veg and fresh asparagus. Thanks, Elise. We really are well set up for camping and cooking in style. On the map, Esphinera, which is obviously a Portuguese word, is marked as a ghost town. It's not a ghost town. It's where the local lady vet is. Stunning chick called Maria. There's apparently a PhD student here, and I'm sure she's an ornithology person. Anyway, so it's definitely not a ghost town. There are real people living here. And I think, as I said yesterday, African parks are moving into high gear to get the operation going. Yes, obviously with all the cattle and goats and sheep around, they need to vaccinate the local animals so that the animals that are introduced are safe. So that is the lady vet, that's her big job. We learned from Maria that most people enter the park via one of the northern gates. Information that would have been much more helpful before we came, but there we go. She also recommended that we head straight for Namibia, which is also called Mokomedes, which is about 200 km away. Mokomedes is a bustling town on the Atlantic. We stayed at the Villa Dorotea, which needs a little love, but it's under new management, so that's busy happening. We hit the ShopRite, we bought a SIM card and some data. Absolutely no fuss. We exchanged some money at the bank. We realized we needed money because none of our plastic worked at any of the garages. We exited via the Sullenjumba Gate and paid our $23 for our 3-night stay and asked the ranger to find out if Anne and Andre and Elise Eckhard had exited at the Padiva Gate. After some time on the radio, the news came back that they had exited via Padiva, and with that assurance we plodded along towards Mokomedes or Namibia. The rangers could not have been more helpful. Thank you so much, African Parks. We encountered Anne and Andre and Eckhart and Elise at Villa Dorotea, and they told us that the Iona Gate, which they had camped at 2 nights previous, had a long drop, somewhere to build a fire, and also some decent shade. It was in excess of 30 degrees for most of the time that we were in the park. Thanks so much for watching, and please do subscribe to see more, and if you enjoy the video, send us a thumbs up. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are happy to help and answer each and every question. Next on our agenda will be the beautiful Sorba Bay and the breathtaking Binga Bay, where we enjoyed some time at the seaside.